when we were at school, my job wouldn't have existed.
Things are changing so quickly. So
within the first 10 years, you can really progress quickly.
I think that would be my advice to people thinking about a career is really think about the things that you enjoy doing and the things that you're good at. And those things may end up being in an industry that you never thought you'd end up in.
Digital advertising is the practice of delivering promotional content through various online and digital channels, for example, Facebook, Instagram, and media websites. To help us understand more about the sector and careers within it, I have three guests with me who are at the top of their game. In this episode of Careers Badger, we find out what digital advertising is, why you should consider a career in it, what a typical day at work looks like, how much you can earn, the routes you can take to get into it, and hear the stories of how my guests got to where they are today and their advice for you. So now let's meet them. Guys, welcome to the show. Ernie, let's start with you. Could you please introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Ernie Collins. I'm the VP of Brand and Ad Measurement at Zappi. Good to meet you all.
Thank you. Teresa, we'll go to you now, please.
Hello, I'm Teresa. I work in Verizon Media as the business and operation strategy project manager.
Superb. And finally, Will.
I am Will Rowan. I work at Verizon Media as well as an account strategy lead.
Superb. I think we'll just cut straight to it. What is digital advertising and why is it important? And Ernie, can you start that one, please?
Sure, James. Yeah, and I think we can start with advertising as a whole before we get into that. So people think of advertising and immediately people think of a commercial they see on the TV. I think that's quite commonly thought of thing when you think of advertising. And advertising really started in the more traditional sense with things like TV and newspapers and billboards or posters. But with the rise of technology and the internet, it's really opened up a new way to touch consumers. And advertising is really about, like you said, promoting a service or a product through this marketing tactic of speaking to consumers on any of these types of formats. And with digital, you have the ability to target people much more effectively, much more accurately than with, let's say, TV or with a newspaper that are really just broadcast mediums that touch everyone. With digital, you can get a lot more specific, a lot more accurate, and it really opens up the doors for plenty of ways for brands to speak to consumers. And it also opens up the doors for plenty of different types of careers. Like I said, there's lots of different ways now of touching consumers. And you mentioned a few: social media. There's this whole kind of stream of advertising that goes through all these social media channels like Facebook and YouTube. And then you have things like Google search, where you're able to intercept people as they're searching for products and services. And then you have this massive load of traffic that goes through all these different publisher sites like the Times and the Guardian and all that kind of stuff. So there's lots of opportunities for advertisers to target consumers. And the other thing about digital is because of technology, it makes it a very accountable media. There's so much data that's available through digital, and as you say, it does mean that advertisers can get a lot more specific about measuring the effectiveness, and that encourages advertisers to leverage this way of targeting consumers.
This is a question to any of you. Can you just give us examples of, specific examples? When I look at websites, for example, at times I'm seeing banner ads maybe of a certain product or service. Are these the sorts of digital advertising campaigns we're talking about? Can you just explain a bit about the different channels that people can advertise via?
Yeah, I can start and you guys feel free to add in. So you have different types of banners, as you can see when you go, for example, into your email, or if you go and read your newspaper or whatever you do on internet, you see like an image. So that could be one of the ads. But you can also, these days we call it a native advertising, where you see a sponsored link within your article, and you see that on Facebook a lot. You see a lot of sponsored posts as well on Facebook. So those would be, and on Instagram you see posts as well, which are sponsored. So those would be the social channels. So,
but I'm interested to find out, if I scroll through and see sponsored content, my immediate thought is I'm not going to be clicking on that because there's some ulterior motive with that article. But presumably people are paying for this stuff. So it does have an impact in terms of companies connecting with their audience, right?
Yeah, I guess it's, if you think of it like, people know that a billboard when you're outside walking along the pavement is an advert. People know that there's advertising within, like, between the two TV shows that you're watching. The idea that it's an advert, I guess, logically, and to a lot of people, makes them kind of switch off. But they obviously, advertising is kind of proven over, I guess, the last 70, 80 years that it does have an impact, and it does help brands kind of resonate with people, especially when it's done right. There's obviously loads of different types of advertising, but people always are kind of savvy enough to realize that it's advertising. But if it's done really well and it really appeals to a customer, then it has a lot of impact. And I guess where digital comes in specifically on that is that because it's so targeted, and you can advertise to the time of day, to the types of email that people get, to the search terms that they look for, you can make sure that it's hitting the right people at the right time. And so you're trying to get that right message across to the right person, specifically at the right moment. So it's trying to go down further and further down that relevancy side of things that I think maybe some other channels don't get to do as effectively.
Yeah, I think that's the real point with digital advertising, is that, and I come back to this idea that people find advertising annoying. You're watching TV and these ads come on, and they're interrupting you from watching your show. But really, if those ads were about products and services that you were in the market to buy, or that were super relevant to you, then you wouldn't find them as annoying. And I think that's what digital offers, like what Will was saying, is the ability to target the right consumer at the right time with the right message. And just to give an example of that, you've probably been online and you've searched for some new trainers, and then you get a Nike ad with some new trainers. Now, that's going to be more relevant to you than seeing a random ad on TV about, nappies, for instance, if you're not in the market for nappies. So I guess, whilst not everyone will click on these types of ads, at least digital gives you the best possible chance of targeting consumers with something that's super relevant to them to make that experience better.
So it seems to me digital advertising offers you, we hear this phrase all the time, but a better bang for your buck, because the money you're spending is going to be seen more likely by the audience that you're trying to target, rather than just a blanket spray and pray approach, hoping that your audience may engage with it.
That's the idea, yeah.
Got it. And I think what I want to talk about now is what sorts of careers exist within this sector of digital advertising. And Will, can you talk to us about that, please?
Sure. So, I mean, we've kind of touched on the fact that it's quite, there's quite a lot of kind of technology there. So, that kind of gives rise to more kind of operational jobs and more kind of analytical jobs. So you might have, and then, kind of engineers that are like building the tech. So that's kind of people who are kind of really experts in like programming language. So they're building out software from the bottom. They're like, what you'd call kind of engineers. And they'd probably be the kind of people that are quite analytical, quite good with like kind of like logic and abstract concepts, and they'd go into programming, and they're probably quite good with computers and quite tech savvy. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got the sales people that are kind of building the relationships between companies. There's a lot of companies involved in the space, and even if they're very, very technical, you still need salespeople representing them that can build relationships with each other and kind of form partnerships between those companies. So on that side, you need people that were very sociable, good at building relationships with people, good at networking. They have to have a kind of understanding of technology, and they have to be switched on to an extent to really understand the tech and be able to sell it, but they don't need to be deep product experts. And then you've got everything in between. I kind of sit in the middle, and we'll kind of go on to this in more detail later, but I have to be able to communicate the more like technical concepts of a campaign to people that aren't necessarily that technical, that are on the sales side, that can help sell our platform and our software. So I need to be able to kind of process information, pull out insights, make changes based on that information, and then also communicate that over to salespeople or to clients. So it's kind of a balance of both. So that's kind of how I look at the skills that you kind of need and the different jobs that are there.
Brilliant. I think I'm interested now to deep dive into your own personal journeys. So I'm interested to know, what led you to your career in digital advertising, what you studied at school and how you made your decisions moving forward. And Teresa, could I ask you to start us off on this, please?
Sure. So I grew up in Czech Republic. That's where I'm from. And so we don't have A levels as such, but we have something similar and equivalent. So I was really always good at mathematics, and my mom is an accountant. So I always kind of had this, sometimes your parents will tell you, you're good at it because maybe they kind of see themselves in you. And so I thought I'll go into like accounting. That would be my area where I would go. And I didn't speak any English, and I knew that with English I had to improve somehow. So I moved to Australia for 2 years. I'm just going to give you a quick overview here.
No,
but
please do. It's interesting.
I moved to Australia for 2 years. I started working as a cleaner there. Couldn't speak any English, and then improved English and started making sandwiches and things like that. And then when I came back, I was returning to my university, which I already started in Czech Republic after 2 years. I had 2-year gap, and all of a sudden I felt like I wanted to study in English rather than in my own language. So I moved to London, and I was lucky enough they accepted me to London University from a second year. So I finished my uni here, and then I thought my university was international business studies. And so it was always business and accounting and economics and so on, because maths was one of I wasn't good at languages, but I managed to speak English in the end, so that's good. And then I got an internship, and the internship, when I applied for it, it said it's account executive. So I thought, oh great, that sounds like accounting, right? And at that time I didn't really know how to read the specs of the job, or I didn't understand really. So I went for it. I got the internship for 3 months. It was unpaid. And I ended up being in a small startup which was doing mobile advertising. And I realized really quickly that I wasn't in accounting, but I really liked the industry. And I realized nobody was wearing any casual clothes. Everybody was coming in trainers and jeans. And I thought, this is a great environment, young people and so on. And then I said, okay, I need to find a job which will be actually paid. And I applied for a few jobs, and my boss at that time in that internship company, he was telling me, look, when you go to interviews, you're going to do a few interviews and you're going to mess up at least 5 of them, right? So don't expect your first interview that you're going to get a job. And I think this is a great advice, because quite often when young people after university, they go for a job interview and they don't succeed in few first of them, they think, oh, I will never find a job. But I think you need to go through loads of interviews and just apply for jobs and just get better and better and know what to answer. And I was going for interviews, and then I got the job at Yahoo.
Can you just tell us quickly about like a typical day in your life? What time you're arriving at work, what email, were you checking? Just tell us about that if you can.
Sure. So as I said, this industry is quite relaxed. So our typical day should start at 9 and finish at 5:30. But I arrive between 8:30 and 9:30 to work. So if I have lots of work, I arrive earlier before 9. And if I know that my day will be more relaxed, I come there at 9:30. And then we have, one of the great things about this industry is also that you have free food, that at least in some of the companies.
Nice.
So we have nice breakfast. Me and Will, quite often we just have a quick chat in the morning. First, I would check my emails and my calendar that I don't actually have anything urgent happening, and then I'd have my breakfast. And then my meetings and my day starts. And quite often I'd be back to back from meeting to meeting. And it would be meetings face to face or on, like we do now, on conference call. It is quite often really busy day with meetings. Then I would stay even after 5:30, very often after 5:30, and just finish on the work that I actually had to do on computer and on email. And in between, I make sure that there is always a break. So we have lunch as well. So we make sure we have lunch with friends, and we kind of break from all the stress that we have in a day.
Ernie, your story, was digital advertising always the plan? Can you talk us through your A-level choices and how you've got to where you are today, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Digital advertising was never the plan for me. Back when I first started thinking about what career I wanted to get into, I think I always took the approach of going for my interests. So back at during my A-levels, I picked psychology and maths. Those were two really key subjects for me. I really enjoyed doing them, and I was fairly good at them. And so I really wanted to pursue that. I then went to university and considered doing maths and psychology, but eventually I just picked psychology with the view of eventually becoming a psychologist, because I thought that, well, if I was interested in it and I was good at it, then I should pick a career in it. And that's really the view that I had back when I was choosing a career path. And I even went to do a master's in forensic psychology, really kind of honing into a specific career within that field. But it was only until I started looking for jobs after university that I realized that it was quite tough to get into the field of forensic psychology. And when I started to read about the actual day-to-day of doing the job, I realized it wasn't something that I really wanted to do. And I think it's really important to consider that when you're thinking about careers, is that your interests don't necessarily ladder up to a job that you want to do from a day-to-day perspective. You know, it's very different. It can be very different. And so the approach that I took after that was I knew what I was good at, and I knew what I enjoyed doing. I enjoyed the analytical side of psychology, the statistics. So the approach that I took was I would think about what I enjoyed doing, and so I enjoyed the analytical side of psychology, the statistics side. I also enjoyed the interpersonal dialogues that you'd have with people. And so those were the elements that I wanted to keep. And so when I started looking for jobs, I really just told recruiters that these are the things I'm interested in. Can you suggest some careers? And I landed in a career in market research. I started working for an agency, a small agency, where I did just that. I did a lot of analytical stuff. I did some research, dealt with big data sets, but I also presented to clients because that was the other half of my job. So I was kind of fulfilling my interests through a career that I never thought I would end up doing. And so I worked for an agency for a while. Then I moved specifically into media, and I was doing a similar type of thing in media, but instead of doing market research broadly, I was really focusing on market research from an advertising research perspective and a measurement perspective. And so I worked in media for a while before moving to a tech company that focused on developing products that helped the advertising industry. And it was really, it was something that I never thought I'd end up doing, working for a tech company or in market research. So the progression was always driven by the things that interested me and the experience that I built throughout the journey. And so my role now at Zappi is, I would say, more on the product development side. I came to the company really as a consultant, as someone that was an expert in their domain, which was around market research and media measurement. And I had the opportunity at Zappi to develop a new arm of the business and a new product that focused specifically on digital ad measurement. And that's what I'm doing today. So, and I think in terms of my role, it's hugely varied. I think one of the nice things of working for a small company, so, well, a relatively small company, Zappi is around 200 people globally, is that you have less structure in these companies. So you've got more scope to go off and do the things that you want. It's less, how to put it, I guess, corporate or hierarchical, where you have certain roles and jobs that you need to do before moving to the next level. You really can kind of go off into whatever you want to do within reason, obviously. And so I had this opportunity to develop this new product. And that's what I've been doing for the last 3 years at Zappi. I guess day to day, my role has changed over time. It started heavily on the product side. And by that, I mean working with engineers to develop product and product features to build this product up from a technology perspective. And as we built the product up, my role has actually moved to a more commercial side. So now I'm speaking to a lot of customers, working with our sales team to drive the adoption of the product. So I think that would be my advice to people thinking about careers. Really think about the things that you enjoy doing and the things that you're good at. And those things may end up being in an industry that you never thought you'd end up in. And that's kind of what happened to me.
Nice. And Will, can we hear about your journey? Was digital advertising your plan? Tell us about A-level choices and what got you to where you are today, please.
Sure. I guess there's a bit of a common theme, and I think maybe this is quite indicative of roles in media and digital advertising and more broadly the media industry, that I think it is quite a good industry for people that haven't really always had a plan of exactly what they wanted to do. And I think most people are like that. Like, most people work it out as they go along, and you find things that you like and you find things that you don't like, and you kind of hone the process as you go. And I think the breadth within advertising and digital advertising in particular, in our case, is so big that it gives people lots of different opportunities, and it gives all sorts of different types of people roles that they may not have known before. And I guess as well, because it's a relatively new industry, when we were at school, my job wouldn't have existed. I never really knew exactly what I wanted to do. I think I was someone that was probably a bit of a never quite specialized in anything. I kind of enjoyed quite the variance in the different subjects that I studied, and I never really wanted to pigeonhole myself. And so I decided to take maths. And if you're good at maths, I'd recommend it as an A-level. It's surprising how often an A-level in maths can help you, even if it's not directly helping you. It's I think people look for that as a good A-level, and it's definitely one that if you're considering, I would recommend. And then to keep my options open, I also went with English language, because I found that interesting as well. I did history, and also, I ended up dropping that for A-levels, and then I did economics as well. And I really enjoyed economics, and I found that kind of didn't pigeonhole me too much. It still gave me a lot of opportunities, and I didn't feel like coming out with an economics degree would pigeonhole me in a certain area over another. And then I came out of uni, and I still didn't really know what I wanted to do. I felt like I was in a good enough position to get jobs. I just didn't know which ones I wanted to go after. And at first I thought I wanted to do management consultancy, and to be honest, I went after the kind of the big four accounting firms, a little bit of kind of chasing the money side of things. But I mean, really, I wasn't that focused or dedicated back then, as dedicated as I needed to be to get those roles. And I didn't end up getting any of the ones that I went after, and kind of really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I ended up just going after some internships to try and like give myself a better idea. And I went after some kind of research analyst roles. And I ended up liking some of that, that kind of going off and learning about different markets or different products and kind of applying that to projects that you're working on. But it was a very, it was kind of like a desk-based role, and it wasn't really interacting with people. It was spending a lot of time by myself and on my computer. And I knew that I enjoyed that to an extent, but I couldn't let that be my entire job. And my second role, again, it was a little bit more commercial, but still quite kind of insular in a lot of ways. And then the third job that I ended up moving into is the position I'm in now, although it has changed quite a lot. And that's kind of given me the opportunity to be kind of analytical and someone that is able to go off and research ideas and kind of understand technical concepts and manage campaigns on my on my computer. But then the other half of my job is going and explaining to clients and to brands how their campaigns are performing and what we would recommend them changing about their campaigns in order to get them to work. So you have to kind of be able to explain technical concepts to people that aren't in the technical or in the software day to day. So it gave me that balance.
What is it about digital advertising that you love the most? And I think, Ernie, can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, I think like we touched on earlier, I think digital advertising has so many possibilities for careers and ways of learning new things. You know, it's heavily kind of predicated on technology, and technology is always evolving. And so you're really at the forefront of technology changes, and which can be quite an exciting thing. I think for me, in my role specifically, I look at digital ad measurement, and the amount of innovation in that space is considerably higher than some of the other media channels. There's so many different players in the market. There's so many things to think about. There's so many, not just from a technical perspective, but from a commercial perspective. Things are changing so quickly. So for me, what I like about it is I'm constantly learning new things. And I think that's something that's very important to me for my career, is that I keep challenging myself, keep challenging my mind to learn new things. And I think that's the most exciting thing for digital advertising.
I think it's the way that it's going forward, because it's related to marketing, right? You're working with brands who are thinking about marketing trends and how the society and the world is evolving. The actual industry is also moving really quickly forward. So compared to some other industries like finance, for example, as I said, you can come to work really casually dressed. Our company, and I think many companies, are really caring about your well-being. And for example, we have regular meditation classes, and I'm, for example, really passionate about mindfulness and mental health, and I'm a yoga teacher. So I've recently graduated to be a yoga teacher. And, even though I'm in digital advertising wasn't my dream when I was growing up to be in. But I found my way to like being there, because it allows me to now I'm actually teaching yoga classes there within the company.
My favorite part, I guess, would be the kind of flexibility of it all. You kind of given a lot of autonomy and given a lot of like respect. As long as you get the work done, you're given kind of a lot more in the way of kind of personal freedoms. we've been sort of working from home when you need to, you're given flexibility in that sense. And, as long as you're getting your work done and you're attending the meetings that you need to and hitting your kind of your targets, then people kind of let you be who you want to be.
So we're going to go to the other side of the spectrum and difficult things. Are there any difficult experiences you've had in your careers, or anything you'd like to have known about the sector before entering it?
There's constant shifts going on in where people see the best way to spend their marketing budgets, and as an industry, we're constantly moving to accommodate for that and to kind of be best positioned ourselves to kind of win that battle. And so you've always got to expect to change. Personally, that's something I like and something I thrive on. But if you're someone that likes consistency and maybe a bit more clarity, security, exactly, and you want to be, this is my role and I want to do this and get really good at this forever, then digital advertising probably isn't the right industry for you. But if you're someone that loves change every day, then definitely, consider it as an option for sure.
And now can we just talk about salaries? How much can you expect to earn starting in the career, and with experience, what could you potentially earn? And Teresa, could you please take that one, please?
Sure. So when you're starting after you finish university or school, some companies offer internships, so they could be unpaid, but the moment you actually get a contract and you get a job, you could be expecting maybe between 20 to 25,000 a year as a starting point. But what is really good in this industry, that you can, within the first 10 years, you can really progress quickly and step up the ladder really quickly.
From my experience, digital advertising, the salaries tend to be split between base and bonus quite a lot. So you often have a kind of base salary that's like a guaranteed salary that you'd get, and then you have kind of like a bonus based on certain targets that are either company wide, maybe market wide, maybe for your team specifically, and then maybe some individual ones. And equally, you can have a combination of a few. So like your bonus would be tied into your performance more so than maybe some other industries, which are just kind of flat salaries, and bonuses aren't really a kind of formal part of that. And especially if you're going down more of a kind of commercial or sales route, then it's much more tied into your bonus.
This is your final advice. So you've got someone who's thinking about what they want to do. Perhaps they're at school trying to pick a degree or an apprenticeship scheme or whatever their route is. What's your final advice to young people trying to make career decisions? And Ernie, let's go with you, please.
Yeah, I think I'll just echo what I said earlier, which is to follow the things that you're interested in, and the things that you're good at, the things that you enjoy doing, and try and speak to as many people as you can that are in different industries and get a feel for what they do day to day. Because I think that was the biggest realization that I had when I started my career, is that people's day to day are so important in terms of whether you enjoy a job or not. Because if you think about it, your day to day is going to account for half of your week. So if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to be enjoying your life or your career. And so I think that's one of the most important bits of advice that I wish I knew back when I was choosing careers, is that you should really explore the day-to-day of different types of careers in different industries and see how that maps to what you enjoy doing at school.
Any tips on how to achieve that? How can they achieve that?
I think it's a tough one, because I think you want to meet people, you want to try and network. So I think the best way to do that is always to use contacts that you have. So if you have, I don't know, your parents or friends of your parents that are in different industries, that's a great place to start. Maybe sign up to some career days where you can speak to people These days we're talking about digital. Well, you know, you have things like LinkedIn, where you could join groups and talk to people. I think people love to give advice, and people love talking about what they're good at. And so if you wanted to just email someone and ask them for a coffee, or a virtual coffee these days, and ask them, you know, how they got to where they got to and what advice they'd give, I'm sure they'd want to give you that. So I think that would be another good way of doing it, just to reach out to people.
Smashing. And Will, final advice from you, please.
Yeah, I think it's really important to try and speak to as many people as you can, and get like a real understanding of different industries and different day-to-days. It's quite easy to kind of look from the outside in and think, you know, I want to be a lawyer, because you have like a unrealistic expectation of what being a lawyer is. So you want to win arguments in a courtroom, but actually, you know, maybe most lawyers are actually, you know, spending a lot of time reading through kind of complicated, you know, text, and trying to, you know, pull out understandings from there, and maybe it's not quite the same as what you had in mind, or maybe it is exactly what you wanted to do. And if you're able to talk to any people in particular jobs about what they do, they can give you kind of a real flavor of it, and they'll give you an honest view. That's kind of the main thing. I think also it's important to kind of not put too much pressure on yourself really early on to know exactly what you want to do. You know, have a think about it. It's good to know at 15 or 16 that you want to be a doctor, because you need to pick the right subjects in order to do that. But if you're 17, 18 going into university and you don't know, like I didn't, that's not a big issue. Do things that interest you. Just pick it on the subject. What subject do you like? Study that. Go into, look at different job, kind of job prospects, and just try and understand, you know, what the skills that they're looking for are, and whether you can match those. And if you can't match all of them, still go for it. I think there's a lot of emphasis when you're younger, you know, I need to have done this course and I need to have got this degree. But, you know, actually a lot of things can be learned on the job. A lot of skills are kind of acquired over time, and they're not necessarily something that you have a degree in. And if you have the right attitude and you get on with people and you can show that you could do a good job, even though you still would have something to learn, that's the important thing. Like,
I would say don't be scared of failing. So if you fail, and I think this was one of the greatest advice I got when I went for my interviews first time, like, you know, you will mess up some of them, and maybe you won't, but if you do, it's like, take always the positive out of it. Try to learn from it. Try to learn from your failure. And just to say just to follow up on Ernie's, don't be scared of changes. So if something doesn't work for you, then change it. You know, try, like, move on and see what else works for you, if your situation allows you to do that. And even if you are in a job for some time after university and you don't like it and you really don't know what you want to do next, and you save up some money, you want to go traveling for a couple of months, do that. Like, you know, do things that maybe will make you think differently, and don't be scared of changes and failing, because that's the way you learn. And I think if somebody told me this, like, don't be scared of change and everything will be fine, I would have maybe taken more risks in a way, because I was always scared of being out of my comfort zone. What if I'm not gonna get the good salary, like as good salary as I'm getting here in my next job? Or what if I take a break and, you know, I will not come back to a job and I won't find a job, and so on. I think, you know, living especially in this country and having the opportunities, and if you really want to do something, you can achieve whatever you want. So don't be scared.
I love it. And I think what's testament to everything that's been said is that we've got three experts here who have risen, you know, they're high achievers in their respective fields of digital advertising, and they've all, they've started, they weren't sure what they wanted to do, but they've just followed, interest. They've started their jobs, and they've navigated and lent into what their interests are, and it's helped them to progress. And I think if you are uncertain, just make a start somewhere, and then your path will unfold before you. And just talking about the LinkedIn stuff, if you haven't got in your immediate sphere people, people, echoing Ernie's points, they want to help. They will be accommodating. You're showing initiative by getting in touch in the first place. And yes, you may get 99 zero responses to your emails, but that one response could pave a new future that you didn't know was out there. So please be proactive on that front. Guys, to my guests, thanks so much for your advice and sharing your experiences with us. Really, really grateful on that. And everyone watching, please hit the subscribe button and just continue being educated and being informed about the careers that are out there, and the fact that it's okay not to have a clue, because everything will be fine. Okay. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks, James.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.